This is Steve, and everybody always asks me how I make such great jerky. And the key, well, first, if it's proper time of day, you must have a screwdriver. Actually, that's optional. The key is pork loin. It's the least expensive cut of meat that you can make jerky out of. Nobody makes jerky out of it. Why, I don't know. So I'm going to show you the very simple steps that you take to make it. First thing you do is you cut it up into sections that you can put into baggies to freeze. The reason that you freeze it is because you need it hard enough to slice on the meat slicer. And yes, this version of my jerky, to do it right, requires a little meat slicer. They're about 99 bucks. So now I've taken my serrated knife and I've cut it up into 5 pieces. And all you do is get your baggies and put them in the baggies. But actually, before that, you trim off the excess fat. It's really critical that you get the fat. Fat does not make jerky. And this can be thrown in a skillet and cooked up for treats for your dogs. That's what we do with it. Works out really nicely. So you're gonna do this to every piece prior to putting it in your freezer bag. And I think that'll probably be good enough for this section. Okay, so now what we have is these 6 pieces of pork loin. By the way, this was about $18 at Costco. I'll give you the weight later on in the demonstration. If you'll notice, I kept the fat on one piece, and the reason I did that is I'm gonna put that in my Traeger smoker and smoke it and eat this whole piece as a meal for my family. So these are all going to jerky. You just place them in a Ziploc bag. And the reason that you put them all in separate bags is because if you freeze them all together, they will stick together. I have experience of this. So this makes it easy to get them out, to slice them up on your meat slicer. If you just can't afford or don't want to go get a meat slicer, you can slice the meat by hand and it'll still work, but it won't work as good and it'll take you a whole lot longer. Okay, there's your meat ready to put in the freezer. So we're going to place it in the freezer and we'll be back shortly. There you go, easy money. Okay, here's your basic dehydrator. I think I got it on Amazon. Nesco's the brand. This is a good one. I don't know if there's better ones, but I like this one a lot. It works just great. One of the keys to keeping it clean, I'll show you how I load it. I have a trick to that, but is to spray a coconut spray oil on the parts before you load the meat on it. That will keep it from sticking and make your cleanup a whole lot easier. Okay, I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna make the marinade that we're gonna use for this batch of jerky. Some of the key items that you'll have in jerky marinade is soy sauce. I use the less sodium soy sauce, Worcestershire, liquid smoke, teriyaki sauce. I also use some Louisiana hot sauce, crushed red pepper, black pepper. And beside that, you can put whatever spices you'd like in there. I also have here my garden peppers. So these are all fresh peppers that I harvested from the garden, and we're gonna add those in for an additional kick. Liquid smoke. this started. Set up, we have our meat slicer. This is just a little slicer I bought at Sears for $99 15 years ago. Works really well. If you've never used a meat slicer before, be sure you use the guard. Always keep your hand behind the protective area or you will cut your finger off. I've seen it done. Okay, these are my chunks of pork that we cut up earlier. They've been in the freezer about 3 hours. And you can see they give just a little bit. You want it real firm, as you'll see when I start slicing. If you don't have time to do it all in one day, you can freeze the meat overnight and then come back and thaw it for a couple hours versus freezing it for a couple hours. So it's just, but having the meat to the right consistency is real critical to getting the slices thin the way you want them. All right, so we've got our meat, got our hand behind the hand guard as I mentioned earlier. Just turn it on, go, and you want to get your thickness set. Okay, now I'm there on my thickness. If you come around here, you can see why you have a meat slicer versus doing it with a knife. So you just put a little marinade in the bottom of your pan. And then as you can see, the consistency of the meat. And again, that's a personal preference. You can definitely go thicker. I like it thin and crispy. That's why people really love this type of jerky. And you just want to spread it all out. Rinse and repeat, basically. You don't want to overlap it just a hair because you just don't. It won't work right. Now, once you get your first layer in there, then you go over your marinade and you ladle around enough to cover it. You don't need much per layer. And then you just do the same process. Lay it right on top. And as you saw, we had 5 pieces about that size, so you can see as long as you had a meat slicer, it's not a big deal. There you go. There's our pork marinating, ready to be turned into jerky tomorrow after it marinates. It has to marinate for at least 6 hours. I always marinate it overnight. So I will see you in the morning. Okay, we've marinated our meat and it's ready to put into the dehydrator. First thing you do is I've already done it, but you give a little coat of spray on the bottom piece and then on your little shield to make sure that everything doesn't stick. You leave that one blank, you don't put anything down there, and then you'll take your wrap and you'll spray it. And this is just to keep the cleanup under control. Of course, it's better if you... there we go. All right, then you just start. Now what I do is I put a little paper towel there and I actually hold the little shield because you're gonna drip as you come up to the dehydrator. That keeps your, again, cleanup a lot easier. And it's just just a matter of getting them all stacked in there. Okay, that's good. Oh, and another thing that's real important is to make sure you do this outside. It can't be in the garage. If you leave it in your house, your wife will kill you, and then you'll lose your job, and everything will go poorly for you. So it's got to be done outside, or it's a real problem.
Don't overlap the pieces.
Okay, now we're getting down to the last of it, and then we're going to take it outside and get it going. And as you can see, we got several nice racks, and it's going to get a good yield out of this one brisket or one pork loin. Alrighty. Okay, we're heading outside. Get her plugged in and get her going. There we go. Turn it on to high, which is 160. Okay, so here we are, 5 hours later. We've already cheated and eaten a couple pieces off the top layer. So you just grab it all and you start putting it in a container. And that's kind of it. What I'll do here in a minute is show you what our yield was off of the equivalent of about $12 worth of pork. And we'll see how well we did on our process. And as you're taking them off, you can check and taste to see if the crispiness is enough for you. Sometimes you'll actually take some of the thicker pieces and put them back on and let them cook for a little bit, but I think we're in good shape with our batch here. Okay, here we have it. Delicious. Also, Bailey loves it. We got 10 bags, but we did cut a big chunk off to save, so that's 10 bags out of approximately $12 worth of pork loin. It's not something you can make a profit at, but you can make lots of friends. I usually eat half of it and give half of it away. Thanks. Hope you enjoyed this presentation.